Hello! In this clip on using positive psychology to thrive, I will talk about positive psychology methods and techniques. I'll talk about Perma model and wheel for growing well-being, the CIA model to overcome adversity, techniques to grow resilience, and how optimists and pessimists view setbacks. So first, an introduction into positive psychology. Now, this really is an area that's very close to my heart. Positive psychology has transformed my life and the lives of many clients. So to introduce it, I will talk about the difference really between conventional psychology and positive psychology. With conventional psychology, there was a focus on providing relief from symptoms of mental illness, for example, pathogenic or psychopathological issues. So it was all about treating and curing illnesses and diseases such as depression and schizophrenia, and bringing people from a place of ineffectiveness or even misery to their baseline levels or normality. And with positive psychology, there's a focus on elements that make and keep people well and resilient rather than components that make them ill. So the focus here is on what makes people happy, what makes them fulfilled and flourish, and using proven methods to bring them to that place. And there's scientific and academic status in relation to positive psychology. It's a science. There is empirical evidence that supports the notion that positive emotions build enduring and consequential personal resources. So in other words, when we're in a positive state, we're more resourceful. And positive emotions in daily life can be self-generated if people learn the skills to enable them to do this. This is really important. We're not just pushed around by our environment, we can grow this. And upward emotional shifts augments personal resources, including cognitive resources, for example, trait mindfulness. And by trait mindfulness, we mean baseline levels of mindfulness. And you can improve this by practicing mindfulness itself or meditating. And you even slow down your aging process when you do so. And you grow your prefrontal cortex. That's the human side of your brain that's responsible for decision-making, relating well to others, impulse control, and managing our emotions. Then we have psychological resources, for example, environmental mastery. And a really interesting statistic is that if I know everything about your external world, I can only predict 10% of your long-term happiness. Just 10%. That means that 90% of your long-term happiness is dictated by how we view the world, our perception. And this is really important and interesting because we're not always in control over our circumstances, but we can take control over how we view the world. And that's what this is all about. And then social resources as well are improved. For example, positive relations with others. If we use our strengths, it's proven to improve relationships with others, and optimists are more liked by others. And then physical resources. For example, reduced illness symptoms. It's proven that optimists have greater immune systems, cardiovascular systems, and even live longer. And optimism can be grown. So now we'll talk about the Perma model of well-being. And this model addresses what Martin Seligman, the founding father of modern-day positive psychology, identifies as the main components of well-being. And Perma stands for positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. First, positive emotions are an essential part of well-being. Happy people look back onto the past with gladness, look into the future with hope, and enjoy and cherish the present moment. And there are activities we can do to raise our positive emotion. And one is a 3 good things diary, when we write out 3 good things that happened that day and why they're good. That rewires our brains for gratitude. Also, exercise is proven to be as effective as antidepressants for depression, and the likelihood of relapse into depression is 1/3 as likely. Then we have engagement. When we focus on doing the things we truly enjoy and care about, we can begin to engage completely with the present moment and enter the state of being known as flow. And flow is a state of consciousness during which people typically experience deep enjoyment, creativity, and total involvement with life or the activity they're engaged in. So it's characterized really of those times where we lose all track of time and self-consciousness. Time seems to slip by. And this can be grown, or we can get more engaged in activities when we're using our strengths to do things we enjoy or meet challenges we enjoy. Next is relationships. Everyone needs someone. We enhance our well-being and share it with others by building strong relationships with the people around us: family, friends, co-workers, and neighbors. This is the #1 predictor of happiness in organizations and in life in general, the depth of relationships that people have. So this is really important. And one technique we can do to improve our relationships is to display gratitude or give recognition to other people. Next, we have meaning. And we are at our best when we dedicate time to something greater than ourselves. This might be religious faith, community work, family, politics, a charity, a professional or creative goal. So we need to identify for ourselves what gives us meaning. It's generally when we do things beyond ourselves, beyond our own immediate needs, where we contribute and we make an impact based on this contribution. So it's in service of others, not ourselves. And you can be paid for it too, but it's in service of others. That's what gives meaning and fulfillment. Then we have accomplishment. Everyone needs to win sometimes. To achieve well-being and happiness, we must be able to look back on our lives with a sense of accomplishment. I did it, and I did it well. So this is not just accomplishing. I have many clients that accomplished so much and still felt like they didn't achieve much. This is also about being able to acknowledge what we have achieved. And techniques we can use for this are a 50 achievements list, where we write down 50 things that we're proud of and keep refining that as we go along. Or the 3 achievements a day list, where we write down 3 things that we're proud of. Now, these things don't have to be profound. We just simply have to be able to acknowledge them. Now we'll talk about the Perma wheel of well-being. In my experience with clients, this has been absolutely powerful. So we can use this to understand what each Perma element means to you and how you rate your level of balance in each area, and then apply other tools and techniques to get you to a place of balance for them. So I'd ask you to do this as an exercise as we go along. So if you get out a pen and paper and draw this image, the Perma wheel, then when you've done that, ask, what do positive emotions mean or look like for you? And when you've answered that, rate yourself out of 10 on how you do this. 10 meaning it couldn't get it any better, and 0 meaning it couldn't get any worse. Then, when you have done that, mark where that score would be on the P here. So a 10 would mean out here at the very edge, 0 would mean in the very middle, and you can draw a curve to delineate where that score is. So let's say for argument's sake, you scored a 5, so it would be halfway up here, and that curve would be here, 5/10 of the way up. If it's a 7, it would be about 7/10 of the way up, and that curve would be here. So the objective really is to see then at the very end, when you've scored everything, where your imbalances are. And it might look something like this. You'll see here that P is a 7 out of 10. That's what we're looking for, a curve. And then you can join them up at the end and see where your imbalances are. Now, what does engagement mean or look like for you? And based on your answer, what would you score yourself out of 10 for this? And based on that score, where will you put your curve? If it's about a 3, you might put it down here. How do you see balanced relationships next? What does a balanced relationship mean to you? How well do you score on this? If it's, let's say, an 8, you might put it up here. When do you know you have meaning in your life? What does meaning mean to you? How much meaning do you have in your life at the moment? And then where would you score yourself out of this? And draw your curve again. And then what makes you feel accomplished? What level of satisfaction do you have with your accomplishments? And where would you score yourself based on that? So you've rated yourself on every area. Now that's a clear visual representation of where your imbalances are and where you're strong and where you might need to focus to gain more balance. So first of all, I want you to think about what your high scores are. For argument's sake, let's say relationships was high. Ask yourself about that area. What are the strengths you used in order to get that so high? How did you manage to get that so high? And what rating would you like to see in an area of your choice? So you'll make this decision based on your scores and based on what's important to you. And then ask yourself, where would you like this score to be? For example, if meaning is on a 3 and you'd like to get that to a 6, what would a 6 look like? How will you know you're at a 6? How will you measure success? And then what would you need to do to bring that area of your wheel to the rating you would like? For example, in the example of meaning again, to get that to a 6, you might want to, for argument's sake, volunteer in an area that you get to use your strengths once a month. But you'll need to come up with the answer to that. And then you can write out by when you want to achieve this and when are you going to start. So that's the Perma wheel. You've identified where you're strong at and how you managed to get that so strong and how you used your strengths in order to do so. And you can learn from that and use your strengths elsewhere. And you've also identified where you'd like to focus on, where you'd like to bring that area of the wheel to, and how you're going to get there and by when. As a result, your well-being will improve. And importantly, positive emotions are not encouraged at the expense of the negative. Negative emotions, failure, and problems are recognized and acknowledged as important aspects of life. These can be just a feedback mechanism to tell us that we need to change something and can be just as motivating as positive emotions. So now let's talk about optimism versus pessimism. Optimists, they tend to see the glass as half full and maintain a positive attitude. And even if the glass isn't half full, they can see what's in the glass and appreciate what's there. They recognize the difficulty but adopt a can-do approach in dealing with it. So this isn't about happyology, that everything's going to turn out okay. This is about understanding that it mightn't, but I'll be able to deal with it and taking control. And they tend to be more resilient and look at setbacks as opportunities for growth and maintain a strong sense of realism. Optimists tend to live longer, have fewer illnesses, have lower blood pressure, and ultimately are more successful in their lives. And how do we become more optimistic? One tool we can use is the 3 Ps of pessimism versus optimism. And the 3 Ps stand for permanent, pervasive, and personal. Pessimists view setbacks as permanent. So an example here, if someone isn't successful at an interview, is that they might think or say, I'll never get a job, I'll never be good at interviews. Whereas optimists view setbacks as temporary. For example, if I work on that skill, I will have more of a chance of getting the job next time. Then pessimists, they view setbacks as pervasive or all-encompassing. So they find it difficult to compartmentalize the difficult thing that has happened. For example, I didn't get the job. It will be the same old story if I go for anything too challenging again. Whereas optimists view setbacks as specific to that one event. They can compartmentalize it. For example, I didn't get the job on this occasion because I didn't prepare well enough. Then pessimists, they take setbacks personally. Example, they thought I wasn't good enough for the job, I am a failure. Whereas optimists, they tend to take the bigger picture view. For example, maybe this particular job was not for me and I'll have more of a chance next time. And in addition to that, optimists view positive things as more permanent, as in it won't end as quickly. And optimists view positive things as more pervasive. So for example, if they are successful at an interview, they believe that they will be more confident if it comes to, let's say, public speaking. And optimists are more likely to take positive things personally. They take ownership of the positive thing rather than thinking that's just fate or some other external explanation. So what we can do here is be aware of these elements, and then when we find ourselves being guilty of them in the negative side, which we can all be guilty of at times, we can switch our perspective if it's not serving us to the one that serves us better, the more optimistic view. So now we'll talk about building resilience, another topic that's very close to my heart, and I know you'll enjoy this too. So resilience, by definition, is the ability to become strong, healthy, or successful again after something bad happens. And other ways to build resilience are making connections. So good relationships with close family members, friends, or others are vital, really. And avoid seeing crises as insurmountable problems. So you can't change the fact that highly stressful events happen, but you can change how you interpret and respond to these events. And accept that change is a part of living. Certain goals may no longer be attainable as a result of adverse situations, and we need to accept that. And move towards your goals one day at a time. This gives us hope. So develop some realistic goals and do something regularly. So now we'll talk about the CIA model for overcoming adversity, and I use this model really often with my clients with great effect. So when a situation doesn't seem to go well, we can ask ourselves these things. The C stands for control. So what elements are you in control of and not in control of? So for example, I have a client that recently got let go from work, and she realized that she's in control of seeing this as an opportunity to get into an area that she finds more meaningful. She also realized that she's not in control over the event being let go. And then what can you influence? Sometimes it might be other people that have more control over it. You could ask them, can they help? And in the case of my client, she realized that she could allow herself to feel negative for short durations rather than judging herself and compounding the negative experience that she was bound to feel anyway. And then what do you just have to accept? So of course we need to accept the things we can't change, but in order to change anything, we need to accept it anyway. So we need pretty much to accept everything, and this can be a powerful thing to be able to do. And in the case of my client, she was able to accept that difficult decisions are made every day and not to take it personally, and nothing good will ever come from seeing it as a negative. And then I often call this model CIAL model because this part is so important if we want to be more resilient as a result. What can you learn from it? In the case of my client, she learned that maybe if she looked at it from another person's perspective, like a loved one or family member, she would be more realistic about it and be more kind to herself. So when something happens that you would prefer to have gone differently, bring yourself through this model and ask these questions and witness the power for yourself. Or maybe there's something in your world at the moment that you'd like to do this for. So just to recap, we've spoken about positive psychology, the Perma model and wheel to grow well-being, and you've gotten your scores and you know where your imbalances are and where you're strong at and then where you need to focus and what steps you can do then to grow balance. And then we've spoken about how optimists and pessimists view setbacks. We've spoken about strategies for building resilience and the CIAL model to overcome adversity. Thank you.